Welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I'm your host, Anna Gray. The best thing about being a nurse and entrepreneur over the last 25 years are the relationships I've developed and the people I've met. As a legal nurse consultant, I wanted you to hear from those amazing people in the legal and healthcare communities. I wanted you to hear who they are and to celebrate them with me. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered. Let's dive into the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I am really excited to have my guest Ashley here today. I know many of you have seen her name before, but Ashley, thank you so much for being here. I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I look forward to the conversation, and thanks for the invitation to join you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, Ashley, tell us where in the world are you coming from?
Currently, I live in the town is Liberty Lake, but it's right outside of Spokane, Washington. So I am right on the border of Idaho and Washington in the northeast corner of the state.
Oh, nice. It's so beautiful up there, isn't it? Yes.
It is. It definitely is.
You still feel like it's beautiful up there, even though you live there?
I do. The mountains are definitely home. Tampa is actually where we're from, and so we've been in Washington since 2017 now.
Okay. That's a big
so we've been up here.
Then.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I have a really, really good friend I talk to almost every day who lives up that way, and she built a house up there. It's just, I always love looking at her pictures because it's just beautiful up there. So
it is.
What brought you up there?
We were trying to figure out where we wanted home to be. We are not beach people, which is surprising for a lot, because that's usually what people are like, no, I need to go to the beach. And so we left in 2016 with a 14-month-old and decided to go figure out where home was going to be, and what better way to do that than travel nursing. And figured when I was 18 weeks pregnant with my second, we should probably figure out where home was going to be and stop traveling. And so we ended up on the west side of the state, and we lived over in Renton for 3 years and then moved over here now almost 4 years ago.
Wow. That's that's a big transition, especially picking up and moving a whole family there. So
totally.
Okay, so Tampa, did you grow up there, or were you there transplanted early on?
Nope, born and raised on the outskirts of Tampa, and my husband was just south of us. So
okay,
all of our family is still there. Everyone else, we up and left independently.
Right. Do you visit there often?
We try to at least once a year.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. Okay, so let's talk about school. I love, it's funny because some people may not want to hear about your history, your school history, but I don't know. I think we're all curious people. I know for me, I'm curious. I'm always curious of where people started and where they ended up. So as far as school goes, did you go right into nursing school, or was there some sort of gap in between there?
Right out of high school, I did go straight into college, but I started pre-med. My initial plan from the time I was young was that I was going to be an OB, and got into some of those prereqs and was a young and naive freshman and said, this is really hard and I don't like chemistry. And kind of got in my head and said, never mind, I don't think I want to try something so hard and difficult, and going through med school. And so I said, well, the next best thing would be labor and delivery nursing. And so I had already done almost 2 years of my prereqs, and I was at the University of South Florida, and they had a very rigorous application process, and you had to have pretty much a 3.7, I think, GPA at the time to get in. And so I was not that high, but I was still, I think it was a 3.3 or 3.4. So it was still good, but it was not good enough for their standards. And they told me I would have to retake a complete new bachelor's program. And so I said, well, we're not doing that. And I transferred to the community college the next semester. And so I went to Hillsborough Community College, their main campus in Tampa, and finished my associate's degree in the 2 years, and graduated with that in 2000 and December 2010. And then immediately I took a semester off and went back and got my bachelor's back at USF. Getting back in for the RN to BSN was a much smoother process. And they said, okay, you have a degree, we can immediately take you back. And so I went right back in and got that in 2012.
Interesting. So did you, when you got your associate degree, you got your associate in nursing, right? You said?
Yeah.
And then you went, yeah. So that's the same route I took as well. I didn't end up getting a bachelor's in nursing. I had a bachelor's before, but I did end up getting an associate degree in nursing after my original bachelor's. So, and it was so much longer ago that I was still able to jump the nursing ladder with a bachelor's in a health science, not necessarily a bachelor's in nursing. Nowadays, it's a little bit different, but I am one of those associate degree nurses. Okay, so when you finished your degree, when you finished your associate degree, did you end up taking the NCLEX right then?
I did.
And then did you practice at all before you went and got your bachelor's, or you went straight?
I started in a new grad program and had been a nurse tech or HUC is what we call them, a health unit coordinator, on the labor and delivery unit. But there were 3 of us that graduated at the same time, and the other 2 had been there much longer than I had. So one of us got L&D, one of us got NICU, and then I got pediatrics. And so I went on to a pediatric med surg right out of school. As a new grad before I had even sat for my NCLEX. I started that in January of 2011 and then took my NCLEX in February.
Wow, nice. Okay, so then when you went and got your bachelor's degree, did you stop working or were you working still?
No, I kept working through.
Yeah.
It was all online except for one assessment course. You had to go in and do a head-to-toe assessment, clinical piece of it, but otherwise it was all online.
Right. Okay. And then did anything change once you got your bachelor's degree, or were you just doing the same thing? Were you still on the same floor doing the same thing?
At that point, I was still on the same floor. Nothing changed. It was just because everyone said, you have to have a bachelor's by this time. And that was kind of rolling out. And so I was like, well, I'm still in the momentum. I might as well just go back and get the degree instead of taking a break. And so I went right back into that, kept working in peds, and I did that for about 4.5 years. Did some travel nursing and got to my first peds contract and found out we were pregnant 2 days after we got to Texas. And I said, okay, well, this is going to be cut short real quick.
Interesting. So your travel contract was also in peds then?
Yes, it was. So I did one in San Antonio, Texas, and one in Lafayette, Louisiana for my peds contract.
Yeah. Did you enjoy traveling then before your first
I did.
job? Yeah,
I did. It was different. And I went into it just kind of exploring and learning something new and different ways of doing things. And definitely didn't know what I was necessarily getting myself into, but it was really nice to see different policies and procedures and how, even though we all learn more or less the same thing in nursing school, that the way you actually apply that is vastly different in different regions.
Yeah. I find it very interesting now that I'm listening to you and I'm realizing that there are quite a few LNCs that I've talked to on this podcast that have a traveling background. And it just hit me, the big light bulb hit me in the fact that you have to adjust to different facilities, and different facilities have different, policies, but we all follow the same standard. But we were all very flexible. I never traveled, but I had been to multiple facilities in multiple capacities. But those that have traveled, it makes sense of why they've become legal nurses, because they've seen different policies and things done different ways, although following the same standards. So it was just, I don't know about the listeners out there, but it was a big aha moment for me just now, realizing that how many people that I've talked to on this podcast have been travelers and they're LNCs. Aha. That's just an interesting fun fact there. So, and it
For
makes
sure.
complete sense. Okay, so when you had your first baby, did you settle down? Did you go back to Tampa? Were you kind of where you were already traveling?
I had left Louisiana a couple months before. I had to cut that contract short because of some pregnancy complications that I was having. And so I went back to Tampa, and I didn't work from, I think it was about 30 weeks until 6 weeks postpartum. And before I had started traveling, I had reached out to another hospital's labor and delivery unit and had gotten in touch with the manager, interviewed and everything. And the position was rescinded because someone in-house, it they had a mix up or something or another. And you have to always offer it to your current employees, and that wasn't done in the appropriate manner initially. So as a consequence, my position that I was interviewing for was no longer a position available. And so during my maternity leave, I had reached out to her, came and did a job shadow, and she said as soon as my maternity leave was up that I could start as a new to specialty in labor and delivery. And so I started there right after at my 6 week mark.
Did you feel like you were home then? Because you had always wanted to be in there, and
100%.
You knew that's where you were supposed to be. Okay, 100%. So you started working. You had a new little one at home. How long did you have that position? I know obviously you ended up traveling again. How long were you in that position there?
That one, we left when he was 14 months. So July 13. Yeah. 12 and a half, 13 months. Right. I had the lovely little travel itch and said, okay, I want to learn something new and do this again and travel. We were still young, and I don't want to say the word mistake. It wasn't a mistake, but I learned very quickly that just because I had peds travel experience did not mean that my 1 year of labor and delivery was sufficient for traveling. And I actually went to a critical access hospital to start off with. So you have no resources, and we were primarily staffed by travelers.
Wow.
And so it was a very much big learning experience of what are your resources? Where are they at? How do you look things up? Who do you go to?
Right.
And just those tools in your toolbox that you have, and how important experience actually is before you go and jump into something.
Yeah. So if you were to do it over again, you probably would have spent more time learning.
Absolutely.
What would you say? Because I know what it is for the OR, kind of the length of time. What would you say? How long would you say you would have stayed, knowing you had the crystal ball? Okay, I have enough experience now. I'm ready to travel. How long would that be?
Probably a minimum of 2 years.
Yeah.
If not longer.
I was going to say, we always say it's like the 3-year mark when you've been working in the OR for a good 3 years, then you finally are ready to fly the coop, But I imagine, learning on the fly, you've accelerated your learning in that department. And I'm sure that, it obviously made you a better nurse. Did you stay at that travel position long, or your very first one out of the gate for labor
I
delivery?
didn't. I did that one for the 13 weeks, and there were some questionable practices with some of the other nurses that I was with that um, I also adopted the philosophy of not my circus, not my monkeys. Of
Right.
you go in with knowledge, which I don't agree with now,
Mm.
because when you see something,
Yeah.
you need to do something about it.
Right.
And so, like, Crystal Ball 2020 is um, a world like you learn and you grow and you know better and do better. Um, but I stayed there for the 13 weeks, and then we went to that one was in um, a small town in Minnesota, and then so we also went from beach and hot
Gosh,
to
yeah.
when we packed to leave. We were in, I think it was probably 10 inches of snow
Wow.
that
Yeah.
we were packing the car in. And then we went and stayed in Charleston, South Carolina, and I
Mm-hmm.
did a contract in Mount Pleasant, which is one of their suburbs, and smaller hospitals. And I did extend there um, before we came up to Washington, and I did 3 travel contracts up here. Um,
Wow. Ah.
I learned that I am not a small hospital person, but
Ah.
having those skills were definitely they help you grow overall because the
Yeah.
resources you don't have people there, you don't have access, and I think it in turn has helped me understand some of these cases from more of the
Mm.
rural hospitals,
Right.
um, because while we do have general standards of care, things are different to some extent in those smaller facilities. So
Right.
I
Right. You
definitely
don't
think
have.
that it was good experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean you learn, you know, and you've touched just about every part of the country. It seems like you've gone north, you've gone south. Okay, so we decide to end up in Washington, right?
Hmm.
And tell me a little bit about how you got into legal nursing. Where that kind of came into play. Where, when?
So when we were in South Carolina, there was actually another nurse in the travel nurse orientation, and she had the principal's the LNC textbook with her that she was studying from because she was taking a course,
Hmm.
and it was what kind of sparked my interest in how I even learned about it. And I looked into it. I got one of the old editions off of eBay and said this would be interesting. I ended up doing one of the online um, trainings that was a couple $100 that some people, I think it's still actually around.
Mm,
Um, but it wasn't the actual hands on what you
right,
do in the day to day life. It was just legal terms and
right.
that kind of thing. And so it was helpful, but it didn't actually tell me what I needed to do and how
Hmm.
to do it.
Hmm.
And so we with traveling and then ended up getting becoming pregnant with our second and just kind of put it on the back burner and so then in 2021 well probably fall of 2020 I finally decided okay I need something more and I want to feel like I am making an impact because when you see things at the bedside, we have some amazing nurses out there who I genuinely think that everyone is out there to do their best and care for people and meet them where they are. But sometimes we are the impeding factor of
Hmm.
things, and we have cascades of interventions that we do that we then subsequently have some of the issues that come up. Um, and so just knowing that I felt like it was a way that I could make a change if I wasn't able to necessarily do that at the bedside,
Right.
um, if I could do it on a bigger level. And so that's how I actually uh, got into it. And I had previously had a lactation business that I had just started
Mm. Hmm.
um, just prior to COVID happening. And
Mm.
of course,
Hmm.
at that point, nobody wants you in their home around their
Right.
newborn. And
Hmm.
So my husband's motivation was, I want you to try this and do this. Don't give up and don't stop.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what I did with my other endeavor. And so that's been my foretelling motivation from the get-go of I am making a difference, and
Yeah.
knowing how important legal nursing is for um, all the specialties really
Yeah.
has kept me going.
Yeah. I see that a lot, especially recently. There's been quite a lot. I don't know because I haven't been in it as long as many. But I do know I've witnessed a lot of new people jumping in and ready and wanting to do this. And I think that the majority feels like is kind of along the same lines. Like we want to make a difference. We have this knowledge. We want to make a difference. I know for me that was also the case. I have this knowledge. I've had it for many, many years. I've thought about it for many, many years. But now it's time, and you feel like you're making a difference in one way or another. You can't be the hero at every location working clinically, but here's an opportunity to kind of have your hands, across across the globe, I suppose.
Right.
So it is nice to know that, we as nurses really, obviously some of us, want to leave the bedside or have young kids that we want to take care of at home. But I think that the majority of what I see is that the first inclination is how can I make a difference in the knowledge that I have. And then the business side comes in, and that part is, we as nurses were not trained as business people.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's what scares most people into this. So their first inclination is, I want to make a difference. How do I do this? And then it's like, oh, wait a minute. I have to run a business. Let's just maybe not quite jump right in. So talk to me a little bit about your business kind of knowledge. I know you said you just said that you had a lactation business that you built. Did you already have this kind of love for business or want to build a business? Where did that come from?
Absolutely not.
I love your honesty.
Know nothing about, or I know much more now than I did then. But I knew nothing about building a business or anything like that. I created my own LLC on the Washington State website on my own and with the help of Google and various, like, how to find your resources and tap into. Didn't necessarily have a love for business, and it is still if I could ignore the back end of things and just do my casework, that would be wonderful. But it definitely is an all-encompassing. You have to do it all, and so I've learned and have people locally that I'll reach out to, or fellow LMCs that I'm like, hey, like this situation's come up, like what would you do, or who is your go-to person? But no, definitely was not my businesses came about because of wanting to help others, and then the business piece of it just kind of had to follow because it has to be there.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love your honesty, first of all. But I also love, and I think I say this in every episode, it gives people permission. So for those nurses that don't want to have anything to do with the business side of it, but know that it is part of it, just know that you can still do this business and not love the business side of it. It is part of it, but it's okay to not love it. I am one of those weird people who loves the business side of it too. But I think that it was just over time. I really love the business side of it. I would say that is definitely not the majority, and the majority of nurses are like you and who, want to do their caseload. And if they could have someone else do that part of it, they would be happy. And that's totally fair. And that, I think, is probably the majority of nurses, because we didn't go into business school. We went into nursing school,
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So you decided to do this. Now, how did you end up launching your business? Obviously, you got your LLC. What did your launch look like? You had the training. Did you connect with other people? Did you just go cold turkey and just feel like, I'm just going to do this? What did that look like for you?
I actually had found another gal who was about 45 minutes away from me, who I had connected with, who was also, she had launched that fall 2020 period whenever I was thinking about it. And so kind of connected with her. And then I was looking into different courses while also trying to be cost conscious of budget and everything, and what were my options, because I knew I needed something more than what I had initially had. And so I got very lucky and was able to take a pilot program. Um, and then a couple months after I started, was able to take another pilot program. And so I got to do one from a med mal side and one from a PI, personal injury standpoint. And so got lucky in those training pieces. But as far as the launch goes, I got all of I am very much I need to research, and I will have 50 YouTube video tabs up on my screen, because I feel like you have to, I have to know it all before I can do it. And finally, this is not how this is going to go. This is not how this is going to work. You can only know so much, and stuff's going to pop up unexpectedly, or and you just have to do it and kind of get over that hurdle of imposter syndrome, and you can do this. And so that was finally my, I created everything, and then my launch was officially when I made it when my LLC was official. And so I did that March of 2021.
Okay. All right. And then where did your first case come from?
My first case actually came from another legal nurse off of LinkedIn. Had reached out to me needing some help doing some medical summaries for her cost projections. And so I was able to start working on those, and then had another, my forensic team that I am still working with had also reached me through LinkedIn a couple months after that. And so that was kind of what I kind of pivoted on, and I focused on the subcontracting realm, because the aspect, again, of doing everything and marketing, like, how do I do this? What do I, where do I go? And so it was really nice to be able to go underneath other nurses who had been doing this, and were successful, and continued with just growing under them, and kind of have continued subbing for many other LNCs in the field for the entire time now.
Yeah. Okay. I love hearing that, because I think that also gives people just an insight, and everybody kind of is different. Some people do that, go down that subcontracting route and have a lot of success with it. And some people continue to do it that way and have no desire to really launch their business, being a face forward. So it is always, I always love to hear people's first case, because it kind of tells you which direction you go to, and it can happen in multiple different ways. So thank you for sharing that. Now, you touched a little bit on the forensics. Now, can you explain a little bit about the forensic side of this? Because I don't think that we talk much about that. I know in communities or necessarily on social media. So give us a little insight of that, because I'm sure that people are, wait, what did she just say? Forensics? What? Yeah.
So I had done a training and was trying to start as a forensic nurse at the bedside, and Washington has some kind of differences of, like, either you have to be an ER nurse or work for a specific agency. And so whenever we moved over to Spokane, I was able to do an online course, got my training. And so whenever I first started doing criminal defense work for the forensic piece of legal nursing, I did primarily sexual assault reviews, but because I was not SANE certified, I don't testify to them. Just more so of a similar credential to a similar credential of didn't want to even kind of broach that. And so that's now evolved of I've been a bedside or part of a on-call team here locally in Idaho, actually, because Spokane is either an ER nurse, pretty much are the only ones that are doing the forensic stuff. And so I was able to start on a team, and so we see anyone who comes in with a sexual assault, both adult, adolescent, and pediatric. We see physical assault, elder abuse, gunshot wounds, strangulation, stabbings, anything that needs evidence collection, photos taken, any kind of a medical forensic exam. We are called in for those. And so I've been doing that. Our program launched right after I had my third daughter last year. And so I've been doing that for about a year and a half clinically now after our program opened. But for the legal nursing part of it, generally speaking, the plaintiff side in prosecution will have the actual forensic nurse who does the exam is their witness. And so I've not had success yet in doing work from both sides. Like I have with my labor and delivery and peds, I work for both plaintiff and defense. All of my criminal work has been for the defense. And so have been doing that since I started and focus now primarily on child abuse and strangulation cases.
It's fascinating. It really is fascinating. And it's kind of just like nursing in general. There are so many different avenues that you can go into with nursing. I know my route was mostly in the OR, but I was in clinical IT for a good 5 years, and it's just amazing that there are so many different avenues. The forensic side of it is fascinating. I actually have a good friend that I work with in the OR who has a good friend. We all work at the same hospital. I don't know her well, but she also does the forensic work, and she's on call here in LA. And I was like, wait a minute, I had never heard that before. So it's interesting. It's just, there's just so many different avenues that we can do that our skills are useful in. So I'm glad you shared that, because I don't know if everybody knows about that, because I know I was, forever years old when I had first heard of that. So thank you. Okay, so you've been working and keeping busy. Are you still working bedside as well?
I am. So I had an injury back in 2021 and left L&D finally after exhausting all measures. I stayed light duty on the unit for a little while, and then finally went into quality improvement and was working from home, which was really nice for that labor or that pregnancy. Of being able to flex my time I have an appointment and I'm going to pause my time and go do my appointment and come back and log back on. So it was a blessing in disguise at the time. And then decided to go into pediatric ICU. And actually, I had started my position that I was hired for was for the Peds Med Surg unit here in Spokane at our children's hospital. And they looked at my experience and said, please work in the PICU. I think you actually would be better suited there. And so I toyed with it of like, no, but I don't want to. That's scary and unknown. And so took some kind of motivational speaking internally, and if someone else is looking at you and saying like, we think you can do this, who doesn't even know you, I figured I had the opportunity, and if it didn't work out, that I could transfer to the med surge. So I did that for about 10 months and realized I miss L&D too much. And so I've been back on a different L&D unit. We do labor, delivery, recovery, postpartum. So we do all of it. We circulate our C-sections, and we have a level 2 neonatal intensive care unit that I currently don't float into, but I do have NICU experience just from floating as well. Right. And so I've been there since April and absolutely love it, and have transitioned also into doing the charge role that I said forever and a decade that I would not do. Like, I don't want that responsibility.
It's a leadership
so I do,
role.
it is. And so I do, I'm a 0.75, so I work 3 shifts one week, 2 shifts the next. Still working nights because I'm the weirdo and vampire and will work a night shift over a day shift any day.
You're one of those nurses.
I am one of those.
I could never be one of those nurses. Never.
In the hiring process, it's always funny. Are you okay with nights? Do you want to go to days? No, I'm good. Thanks.
Yeah, no. And that's how usually night shift nurses are. I know every night shift nurse that I know would just prefer to work that. That's their preference.
Nope, I'm good.
Yeah, for whatever reason.
Yep. So yeah, I do probably 2 or 3 of my shifts are charge role, and then the others are actually doing patient care with labor and postpartum patients.
Yeah, so you are a busy woman.
I wear many hats.
Yeah, I was gonna say you have young children. You've got your hands in all different things, which I love as an entrepreneur and someone clearly who has their hands in things like a podcast. I can appreciate it, and you truly are a leader if you can juggle those things and still show up the next day wanting more. So I give you a high five for that.
Thank you.
All right, so the legal nurse side of this, can you give some advice to those people I was talking to, the people that come in and say, hey, I really would love to do this. What is my first step? Because again, now you've been through it and you kind of have all different, pieces of the puzzle put together. What would your initial advice be for someone like that?
The ALNCs, so you want to be an LNC, they have that webinar, and then there's the roundtable Q&A session that's on their website. Now, whenever I get asked that question, I send people there, because if you don't know what you're even getting into and you're just trying to jump in I just want to get my feet wet. Well, there is no getting your feet wet. It's I'm going to jump in and I'm going to do this kind of mindset that I think is really valuable of kind of figuring out that background piece of it before you put all your eggs in your basket. So I usually send them to AALNC to even start there.
Right.
And then joining Facebook groups, because those are free at the moment. And once you kind of grow from there, then there's next steps that I usually recommend.
Right. No, that's a great start. And then you are not the only one who refers people to those webinars. And it really is kind of understanding what you're getting into. I like that you said that. Understanding what you're getting into before you get into it. It sounds great, but you really don't know what you're getting into until you are. And whether or not, it's like, you don't want to waste your time either. It sounds great. And then you start digging in and you take all of these courses and you're like, wait, why did I do this? I've seen that happen as well. So I appreciate you sharing that. All right. Yeah. So where, if we need your assistance, or even if we just want to say thank you for sharing your story, which I know every single guest will tell you that their inbox is flooded by people that have heard the episode and have connected with my guests and say, I love hearing your story, or I can relate in whatever way they can relate to. Where can we find you?
Email is probably the best. So it's ashley@genesislegalnurse.com. I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook. as in private messages on there are totally fine as well.
Great. And this will all be in the show notes, so you guys can just click on that as well. Well, thank you, Ashley, for coming to me up a bit north of where I'm at. So I appreciate you spending your time and sharing your story. And I'm really glad I know you better now and where you came from and know that you are a go-to person for, very specific, your very specific specialty. So appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for letting me join you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for joining us in this fun conversation on the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I hope you found this episode as inspiring and empowering as I always do. And I hope that you share this episode with your friends. If you enjoyed it, I would love it if you could leave us a review or comment, as I would love to share them in the future episodes. Or hop on over into my DMs and send me a quick message. I can be found on Instagram at anna.b.gray, on my website at limitlesslnc.com, and over on LinkedIn at anna.gray. And I want you to remember, you are limitless. Until next time.